helped my best friend organize and finance her wedding. But she didn't invite me, so I took legal action the day before her family dinner, and the aftermath was more dramatic than I ever imagined. Was I wrong to demand my money back? I'm going through a lot right now, so excuse me if I just dump everything here. About a month ago, I received a call from my childhood best friend, Emma. We went to school together, and she lived just 2 streets away. Until high school, we were inseparable. We were the type of friends that every family knew. However, her family moved to another part of the city, and we drifted apart a bit. We stayed connected on social media and met up at least once a year. You know how life gets in the way. But we remained friends. Not the kind who talk daily, but the kind who know they're there if something happens. Emma had big news. She was getting married. The last time we met about a year ago, she talked about her boyfriend, but marriage wasn't in the plans. So when I heard the news, I was genuinely happy for her. Childhood best friends hold a special place in your heart. I thought she was calling to invite me, but she wanted me to be part of the wedding preparations. I saw this as an opportunity to strengthen our bond. I mean, who doesn't want to see their childhood best friend walk down the aisle? Emma said she was overwhelmed and had many pending tasks, and asked if I could help her. I didn't hesitate for a second to help her. I prepared as if this was my only task in life. I was ready to go look at bridal gowns, floral arrangements, and all those things that are part of a wedding. At first it was fun. She consulted me about designs and other plans before finalizing them. It made me feel very special. But then, things started to get weird. She began asking me to lend her money for almost everything. The first time it happened was when we went shopping for her shoes. She chose some elegant bridal shoes, and at the register she exclaimed, "Oh no, I ran out of cash. Could you cover for me?" I immediately jumped in to help without thinking twice because I assumed she'd pay me back later. 2 or 3 days passed, but she didn't. I thought maybe she'd forgotten, but would pay me when she remembered. Then she asked me to accompany her to try on her dress. While she was at it, she asked me to advance the money and said she'd pay it all back once her check arrived. I agreed, seeing that she was keeping track of what she was borrowing. She told me that a payment from a foreign client was being held at the bank, and as soon as she received it, she'd clear all her debts. One day, she called me in a state of total panic. Her wedding planner was threatening to cancel unless she paid a $1,000 deposit immediately. She still hadn't received her client's check and begged me to help. I hesitated for a second, but I had known her all my life. Plus, I wanted to believe she would never take advantage of me. Our families knew each other, and the situation seemed genuine. Anyone could be in her place. I know that if my salary was delayed a month before my wedding, I'd also end up borrowing money from friends and family. Yes, I wondered why she wasn't asking her fiancé or her parents for help. Then I thought that maybe they were paying for other things I didn't know about. Or perhaps she didn't want to ask them for help. Some people trust friends more than family. Emma swore over and over that she'd pay me back as soon as her check arrived. Of course, no problem, I thought. It's her wedding, and I wanted to support her. But this kept happening. $300 for makeup here, $200 for a hair accessory there. It all added up quickly. I also found myself neck-deep in other wedding-related tasks. She asked me to help design the invitations. I spent hours researching perfect templates and fonts. She couldn't decide on a menu, so I accompanied her to several tastings, always paying the bill on her promise of, "I'll pay you back soon. I'm keeping track of everything I borrow." When she needed transportation to meet with vendors, I'd drop whatever I was doing to drive her. I even stayed up one night helping her hand-make wedding favors because she wanted a personal touch. I often wondered if she had no other friend but me to help her. I even asked her about it, and she said, "It's hard to find genuine friends these days. Childhood friends touch the heart. No one can replace them." At every moment I told myself, this is what friends do for each other. Sure, I was exhausted, but I reminded myself of our decades-long friendship, Our sleepovers talking about our crushes and heartbreaks, and so much more. We had a history together. As teenagers, we dreamed of standing by each other on our big days, and there was no bigger day than a wedding. I felt like I was helping her create one of the happiest days of her life, and that made all the effort worthwhile. Oh, and speaking of the maid of honor, when I asked who it would be, she said it would be her sister. She explained that she couldn't let anyone else be the maid of honor, so that spot was fixed. I felt a little disappointed, but her sister is 10 years younger than her and still a teenager, so it made sense. There was nothing I could do about it, and I accepted it. Fast forward to today. We went shopping for a dress I was going to wear at the family dinner this weekend. While we were there, I heard her talking to the wedding planner, giving instructions to put a scanner at the doors so that only guests with a QR code could enter. She stated, "If there are intruders, I'm not going to pay for the extra plates." I was confused. QR code? What QR code? I hadn't received any invitation, let alone a QR code. Until that moment, it hadn't even occurred to me that she hadn't sent me an invitation. I was assuming I didn't need one. I mean, I've been by her side the whole time. Why would I need an official invitation? When she came out of the fitting room, I casually mentioned it. "Hey, you still haven't sent me the invitation. I'm not officially invited yet," I said, laughing, thinking it would be funny. Her expression froze for a second before she put on an awkward smile. She looked me directly in the face and said, "Oh, yeah, about that. The wedding is family only. I'm not inviting any friends." I laughed, thinking she was joking. I kept my expression steady, thinking she would laugh. She didn't. I was like, "Wait, what?" Emma repeated with a serious face. "It's a super intimate wedding, you know? Just blood family." Sorry. Now I wasn't laughing at all. I had been running around for weeks, spending my money, and I wasn't even on the guest list. I looked at her in shock. I had been giving my all to help her, had spent thousands of dollars, and I wasn't even worth an invitation, I asked a bit angrily. "So I'm good enough to pay for your wedding but not to attend it?" She stuttered some excuse about budget issues and keeping it small, but I was already fed up. I turned to leave before saying something horrible, but Emma took my hands and said, "Why are you reacting like this? It's my wedding, and I decide who attends." I told her, "Sure," freed myself, and left. Now I wish I had responded instead of keeping it all in and bottling it up. It's past midnight now, and I simply can't sleep. My mind is replaying every moment of the last few weeks. All the hours I spent helping her. All the money I spent. The discomforts I ignored. My mind is racing at 1,000 miles an hour, and I can't fall asleep. I have a full-time job and a life. I put everything aside to be by her side. I feel betrayed, humiliated, and used. Part of me wants to let it go. After all, it's her wedding, and it's her choice who she wants to invite. But the other part of me can't set aside the anger and pain. I was always there for her, and she couldn't even extend me the basic courtesy of inviting me to her big day. What do you think? Should I let it go and just wait for her to pay me back my money or do something more about it? Update 1. For those concerned about me, here's a quick update to let you know I'm doing better. I realized that if she didn't want me at her wedding, that's fine. It's her decision, and I shouldn't be upset about it. At the same time, I shouldn't allow her to exploit me. I was struggling with deciding whether to just ask for the money back or do something extra as revenge, but I waited for my nerves to calm down to make a decision that wasn't merely impulsive. I had to wait a few days for that to happen. The incident I mentioned in my first post happened on Tuesday. I waited a couple of days before asking her to pay the debts, which is what I decided I was going to do. Thursday came, and I woke up to a message. "Please send me $500. It's an emergency." I laughed and slept for another hour. When I woke up, I saw some missed calls from her, perhaps as a reminder to respond to her messages. I ignored them. Then she called again, At first, I thought about ignoring her, but then I said, "Face the music." I answered the call in the most normal way, beginning by saying, "I'm glad you called first. I was about to remind you to pay back the money I lent you." She mumbled something about the delay in her check, but I interrupted her and said, "It's $1,500. You have my bank details, right? Oh, and can you do it quickly?" Emma went silent for a second, and then asked, "Are you trying to get revenge on me for not inviting you to the wedding?" I didn't know what to say. It was true that I felt offended, but I didn't want to admit it, so I stayed quiet. Emma complained about being under pressure from the wedding and how difficult it was to manage everything with the delay in her check. I told her, "I'm sorry, but that's not my problem. I helped you when you needed it, and now I want you to pay me back." Emma yelled at me, "I don't have time for this. I'm getting married in a week. Can you please advance me $500 right now?" Not only was she not paying me back, but she was also asking for even more money. I yelled back, "Didn't you hear what I said? I'm not giving you another penny, and I expect you to pay back what you owe me." Emma downplayed it, saying, "Relax. Why are you being so dramatic? I'll pay it back eventually." I couldn't contain my anger any longer and yelled at her, "You know what? I want my money back, and I want all of it, and now." To my surprise, she laughed and said, "Don't be a baby. It's just a few thousand. You have plenty to spare." Then she added, "I know you earn pretty well. 10 or 15,000 isn't going to empty your bank account. You won't even feel it." I was furious. I told her, "You knew I was financially well off, and that's why you took advantage of me." She tried to defend herself, but I hung up. Everything was clear. She had used me, and I wasn't going to let it slide. To have everything on record, I sent her a voice message asking for the money. I gave her 24 hours to return it. To my luck, she responded with a voice message saying, "I don't have time for this. Get over it. I'll pay when I have it." Well, great. I gathered my bank statements, the debt details, receipts, her voice message, and decided to sue her. I never imagined it would come to this, but she left me no choice. Her intention was evident from her tone. She had no intention of returning the money, and I wasn't going to let it go. All I wanted was for her to give me back my money, but she played with fire, and now she's going to get burned with the lawsuit. My sister's boyfriend is a lawyer, and we're good friends. I contacted him immediately, and he started with the documents. The legal notice is to be delivered tomorrow, Sunday, the day of her family dinner. I didn't want to ruin it, but if it does, I don't care either. Since I've started this thread, I'll keep you informed. Update 2. Oh, it was a total disaster. The legal notice was delivered right before her family dinner. When I say right before, I mean they literally gave it to her while she was having wine with her in-laws. I paid extra to have it delivered in person through my lawyer's assistant, and interestingly, I accompanied him to deliver it. I wanted to witness how devastated she would be upon receiving the notice. She must have thought it was some last-minute delivery, but no. Surprise, it was time for her to pay. Literally. As soon as she saw me with a man in a suit holding a stack of papers, she turned pale. She closed the door behind her and came out asking what it was all about. The server handed her the papers. Her face turned ghost white as she read them. She went into such a panic that her parents had to intervene, curious about what had her so upset. I stood there in silence. They asked what was happening, and I pointed to the papers. Her mom started yelling, asking why they were being sued days before her daughter's wedding. Her dad calmed them down and took us outside to the front porch to talk. The server took the signature and left. Her fiancé also came out to see what was happening, but her father handled it, saying they were some bank documents. I told them the truth. I told them she owed me money and had no intention of paying it back. Her dad was upset because I had delivered a legal notice for what he called small change. Then he found out the amount, $1,500, which was no longer small. The man nearly had a heart attack on the spot. He kept repeating, "You owe her $15,000. while Emma mumbled excuses about her check and how it wasn't a big deal. Her dad yelled at her, saying it was a big deal, not only for her, but for them too. They tried to convince me to withdraw the lawsuit and wait until after the wedding, but I made it clear. 24 hours. Noticing the commotion, some of her aunts and uncles came out to see what was happening. Although her parents pretended a smile of nothing's happening, I'm sure some heard enough, as they looked at each other with raised eyebrows. I was surprised that even her family dinner had more than 15 people. She was clearly lying about the wedding being intimate. Initially, it was just the 4 of us discussing the matter, but somehow 2 of her aunts and an uncle joined in. One of them asked who I was, why she owed me so much money, and why the hell she wasn't just paying me. I even heard someone whisper, "She used her friend to finance this whole wedding." Let me tell you, that didn't sit well with her parents. It was chaos, to say the least. My intention was to deliver the papers and leave, but when the drama reached this level, who wants to miss the opportunity to see it from the front row with popcorn? I could see her in-laws and her fiancé watching through the window, and after a while he came out furious and asked what was going on. When they explained the situation to him, his reaction was interesting. He asked Emma directly, "Why didn't you just invite her to the wedding if she's been helping you so much?" And you know what she responded? "I didn't think it was that important." He couldn't believe it. He said something like, "You didn't think it was a big deal to invite someone who basically financed half of our wedding? Are you crazy?" At that point, her parents also got involved. They had been helping with some of the wedding expenses, and now they started questioning where their money had gone. It was total chaos. There was so much tension at the dinner, but I wasn't going to move from there. I wanted to know what was going to happen. I told them, "I'd like you to handle this, but I want my money back in 24 hours. Her mom took me aside and begged, "We've known you since you were a child. Isn't there anything you can do to help your friend? Please, for our sake, give us more time until the wedding is over." I replied, "I'm sorry, but I can't let you keep exploiting me." Then her dad said, "You're not going anywhere. You're also attending the wedding. You're like our daughter." He was trying to flatter me, but I didn't buy it. I told him, "I don't want to attend that wedding, especially when I'm invited only because I've taken legal action." Finally, I left because nothing else was happening, and all they were doing was trying to convince me. Later, I found out that after I left, her parents and her fiancé sat her down and demanded a complete breakdown of the wedding expenses. It turns out she had been overspending like crazy. She had splurged on things like custom floral arrangements, premium upgrades on the catering, and even a live string quartet for the ceremony. The $10,000 I gave her? Yes, they went directly to the wedding planner's emergency fees, which apparently weren't emergencies at all, but simply her last-minute whims. The wedding was far from small. She didn't invite me because she didn't feel I was close enough, or that it was a big deal. Or maybe it was because she didn't want me to know it was such a grand wedding, and I might end up asking her to return the money. It was clear she wasn't going to be honest, so I decided to request a temporary court order to freeze her accounts until the case was resolved in court. My lawyer suggested it as a precaution, so she couldn't spend all her money and then claim she had nothing to pay me back. When she found out about this, she exploded. She sent me a message calling me all sorts of ways, but none were flattering or referred to me as a nice person. She was accusing me of ruining her life, so I can understand why she wasn't as friendly as when I lent her money. She said I was jealous because she was getting married while I was still single. On the other hand, her parents tried to emotionally manipulate me, saying, "How can you do this to your childhood friend?" And I replied, "How could she do this to her childhood friend?" They told me I should drop all charges. Her dad even called my lawyer and asked for an out-of-court settlement. He insisted on scheduling a meeting the next day. Her parents accompanied her, and she was furious when she saw me. All matters were discussed, and her parents were outraged. They told her she needed to immediately reduce the wedding budget. Emma was furious and protested, saying this was the wedding of her dreams and she wasn't going to compromise. But her dad stood firm and said, You're not going to drag this family into financial ruin for a party." Emma completely lost control. She screamed that her day was being ruined and blamed me for everything. But her tantrums didn't help her get her way. They had to return every last cent they owed me and also pay a fine for harassing me. Later, I found out through her Instagram profile that they canceled the string quartet, downgraded the catering quality, and even cut the guest list even further. Best of all, Emma wore a different dress than the one she had initially bought. I guess her parents asked her to return the expensive designer wedding dress and buy something more affordable. But you know what? The universe works in mysterious ways. The incident spread among other friends. Although I didn't go around telling what happened, when a mutual friend asked me, I told her the truth. That's when I discovered that Emma had done this before with other friends too. That's why she practically has no friends. She would forget her wallet when going out for lunch or dinner, promising to pay next time. But that day never came. Over time, her friends stopped seeing her. Surprisingly, she had never done something like this to me before. Maybe that's why she thought she could scam me big time this time. Anyway, the wedding was far from as grand as she had planned it. The guest list was reduced to just parents and siblings, which was an intimate wedding, as she said. In the end, she didn't lie, although not because she wanted to. Some services were canceled, and the decoration, food, and everything else were minimal. Emma and her parents had to dig into their bank accounts to pay the vendors. I'm sure it was hard for her to see so many long faces on her big day. I won't lie. It felt satisfying to know she couldn't just walk all over me without consequences. Update 3. It's been over a year since I wrote anything on this subreddit, but I think what's happened recently warrants coming back, even if it's for one last time. It's about my childhood ex-friend and her marriage, so I hope you stick around to read it. To update you a bit on what's happened with Emma after her wedding, I have to tell you that she also had her honeymoon, although not in the paradisiacal place she intended when she was still helping with the planning. She always talked about spending a couple of weeks in Hawaii in a house with a sea view. If you think that sounds expensive, it's because it was, and she probably expected me to finance it at some point. However, with my lawsuit, that plan must have been canceled, and she had to move to Plan B. Although, honestly, I don't think the honeymoon she had was her second option. Maybe her option Z, or perhaps new letters need to be invented to describe how far it fell from her initial plans. It was so bad that she hasn't uploaded a single photo to Instagram, but I've still found out the details. It turns out she stayed at an aunt's house in Ohio. And no, it's not a dream house. It's a regular house with a view of nothing. That's been the luxurious honeymoon she had. At least now she has the chance that if she gets married again, she can finally get the wedding of her dreams, because she's in the middle of a divorce. You could say her marriage has lasted a few months, but to be fair, it's much more than I and many of the commenters here thought it would last. In my opinion, I don't understand how she managed to get married in the first place, as there were many red flags for her fiancé. Most likely, the divorce has nothing directly to do with her behavior or money. Otherwise, they would never have gotten married. But lacking details, I can only imagine what's happening. I could suggest we go out for coffee so she can tell me what happened, but I risk her asking me for money to pay for it, and my desire to know fades away. That's all I can tell you for now. Edit. I've been able to find out that the reason for the divorce was infidelity, but it was her husband who cheated on her. I would have bet my new $15,000 that it had been her. But this girl never stopped surprising me. She surprised me when she used me for money, and now she surprises me that she wasn't the unfaithful one, or at least the direct cause of the divorce. Though, as an interesting fact, he had a prenuptial agreement. Perhaps my lawsuit had something to do with it.